Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first annual induction ceremony for the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame. I'm Steve Phillips, the current athletic director for Rockville High School. This annual event is one of the highlights of this weekend, and it is a fitting time for us to honor these student athletes as they receive this well-deserved award. The purpose of the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame is to select and honor athletes, coaches, and other contributors who have demonstrated outstanding achievement while at Rockville High School. High school athletics has long played a role in the academic athletic atmosphere at Rockville High School. These student athletes have excelled in the classroom and then had the chance to excel yet again in various sports. Through this combination of academic and athletic challenges, they have achieved many successes. The successes continued into their professional and personal lives after graduation and are a testament to what they learned in the classroom and in competition. I'm proud of our Athletic Hall of Fame committee, who will be introduced later in the program, for their hard work and many hours to make this vision a reality. We hope from our experiences this afternoon that our community will continue to recognize former outstanding athletes and increase its enthusiasm for athletics. We are happy to be able to celebrate not only the honor they received this afternoon, but their many accomplishments. Please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. David Smith.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming, and congratulations to all of the inductees. Leading off, inductee Betsy Anderson McShay. She'll be presented by her father, John Anderson. Now I'm pleased to introduce Joe Kalachi Jr. He'll be presented by his teammate, Sonny LaPointe. Our next inductee, John Canterbury Jr., is deceased. Accepting and presenting for him will be his son, John Canterbury Jr. Our next inductee is Tom Dunn. He'll be presented by a friend and TV and radio editor from the Journal-Enquirer, Matt Buckler. Our next inductee, Fran Geisler, deceased. He'll be accepting and presented by his son, Don, a player, and Dave, his son, will also speak. Our next inductee, also deceased, Garrity. Harry will be represented by his daughter, Dee Dee Garrity, and she will be presented by Harry's brother-in-law and her uncle, Mark Laxenberg. Our next inductee is Susan Golden Perella, and I will be her presenter. But welcome, Susan Golden Perella. Our next inductee, Mike Leonard, will be presented by his baseball coach, Art Wheelock. Next inductee, Jim Martello. He will be presented by his son, Greg. I'd like to introduce Alan Putz. He'll be presented by his teammate, Ken Foisey. Our next inductee, Bill Romanowski, could not be with us today, but there will be some remarks about Bill later. And to wrap up, our last inductee is Ralph Schulman, deceased. He'll be represented by Don Berger and his son, Steve Schulman. At this point, I would like to introduce the chairman of the committee, Mr. Scott Smith from the athletic department at Eastern Connecticut State University. Scott?
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, I would like to thank you all for being here with us today as we honor and celebrate the accomplishments of the Rockville High School Athletic Program. Before we get to the real reason we are all here this afternoon, the committee and I thought it was important to give you a little background and information on the purpose and definition of the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame Committee has been working toward today's ceremony for over 2.5 years. The initial committee was put together by Athletics Director Stephen Phelps and was made up of some eager volunteers and others who were strong-armed, I meant to say strongly encouraged to volunteer. We couldn't have done it without any of them. As a committee, we then set out to form an appropriate set of standard operating procedures that would guide our Hall of Fame process and eventually bring us to this, our first induction ceremony. After researching models of various scholastic and collegiate halls of fame, the committee decided on the following basic guidelines. The purpose of the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame is to recognize and honor those former athletes, coaches, administrators, and significant supporters that have distinguished themselves through outstanding contributions to the Rockville High athletic program. With that purpose in mind, the committee decided that the emphasis for all decisions made in regard to nominees in the 4 categories of athlete, coach, administrator, and supporter would be based upon their careers and accomplishments while participating in the athletics program at Rockville High School. Accomplishments and honors accumulated by nominees after leaving RHS are taken into account and are weighed into each individual committee member's final decision, along with research and vital committee discussions that occur throughout the process. Those nominees that appear on the final ballot at the voting meeting must receive 80% of the committee vote to gain induction into the Hall of Fame. Those that do not receive 80% of the vote will stay on the final ballot for up to 3 additional years. After the voting is completed and the induction class is selected, research and information gathering occurs to prepare for the next induction ceremony. Following the induction ceremony, the next Hall of Fame cycle begins in the fall. Our original list of over 100 names was generated through hours of research in yearbooks and newspaper articles, by speaking with former Rockville athletes, coaches, administrators, and media members from as many sports and eras as possible. Through more research and discussion, the list was pared down into a working list of 30 individuals until a final ballot was decided upon and our first induction class was selected. If you have any interest in getting involved with the RHS Hall of Fame, or you would like more information about our process, please pick up a form in the lobby. There are nomination forms available as well. We are looking to add committee members, so please get in touch with us if you are interested. Now that you have a little background on the RHS Athletic Hall of Fame and its decision-making process, let's get to the real reason we are all here this afternoon. Hall of Fame induction is the highest honor an institution can bestow upon any individual, and we are very honored and pleased to be able to lay the foundation for the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame with 12 very worthy individuals this afternoon. Thank you all for being a part of our inaugural induction ceremony. Thank you.
The concept of an athletic Hall of Fame here at Rockville High School is not a particularly new idea, but it took the initiative and dedication and a lot of time to bring us all together to where we are this afternoon. The planning, the attention to detail, the care, the talent, and the hard work must be recognized. It's the right thing to do, and we will do that later on in the program. For these athletes and coaches, as performers, their moments in the sun have passed. Seasons end, times change. The athletes move on to colleges, careers, and families, and lives, for which their athletic experience in high school prepared them so well. For the coaches too, seasons end, new teams come and go, and they remain a steady and healthy presence in our schools. And for that we thank them. For our inductees here, as Bruce Springsteen reminded us, their glory days become more distant. However, for this first class of members, this establishment of our RHS Athletic Hall of Fame today brings all of those memories and accomplishments back into sharp focus and allows them another moment in the sun, in the present, in their school, with their peers, and with their families. To quote Abe Lincoln, it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. Clearly, this is a distinction that no one can ever take away. So let's get started. At this point, I would like to invite Betsy Anderson and her dad to the stage, please. Betsy Anderson, a 12-time letter winner, a 2-time All-State honoree in soccer, basketball, and track and field, and a 10-time All-Conference selection. She was a 2-time USA Today All-American Honorable Mention selection in basketball, and graduated as the all-time basketball leader in points and rebounds, and held the school record in the javelin. A 5'9" post player, Anderson keyed the 2 most successful teams in the history of the RHS girls program, under RHS Hall of Famer coach Jim Martello. Anderson earned a BS in mathematics from the University of Hartford, a master's and a PhD in math from American University. She's currently employed as a professor of developmental math at Richard Stockton College and resides in Hainesport, New Jersey with her husband Matthew and their 3 children. And now I would like to introduce her father, John Anderson, who will be her presenter.
First, I want to thank you, Betsy, for honoring me with to be your presenter. However, I know your real underlying motive here. You just wanted to get out of having to buy me a Father's Day gift. So far, that's how it's played out. Anyway, where to begin? Firstly, Betsy was a natural. She was endowed with the things necessary to succeed in athletics: speed, quickness, coordination, sports smarts, and most importantly, my genes. Betsy, glad you didn't get your mother's. Today you would be being inducted into the Cross-Stitch Hall of Fame. Of course, she has to receive some of the credit. After all, it was her who got struck by lightning when she was 8 months pregnant with you. So you were born supercharged. Along with her natural talent, some of the characteristics that made her so successful were her seemingly innate understanding of whatever sport she was participating in, her ability to maximize her shortcomings. While she was not a great leaper, she was a great rebounder. She had an uncanny ability to read an errant shot by an opposing player and know where the ball would end up, usually in her hands. She was fearless, never afraid to mix it up, take the charge, or go into the pack to make a header. She was intimidated, but never intimidated by anyone. Betsy was the only high school soccer player I ever saw who could prevent Wilton's Christine Lilly, future Olympian and World Cup player, from having free reign on the field. You see, in high school, Christine Lilly, being left-footed, always went to the left. So when she made her move, Betsy was already in position to impede her progress. Betsy was tenacious, especially defensively on the court. You didn't want to have her guarding you. She was frequently called upon to stop the other team's best player. Anyone who was guarded by Betsy was in for a tough night. As a freshman in college, she was assigned the task of guarding Chris Lamb, UConn's senior All-American and leading scorer. She was so effective at shutting her down that Gino called a timeout, and with great pride I listened to him, and these words still resound in my mind. And these aren't exactly the tone and everything that Gino said it in. I mean, he was very, very upset. But he basically, what he said, she's a freshman. She's a GD freshman. And she's beating you on every move. It gave me great pride to hear those words. Betsy always gave 100%. She never quit. While she was primarily known for basketball and soccer, she was very, very good in track and field. Her event was the javelin. And I call track and field one of the invisible athletic events because you really don't concentrate on that. You don't know that. There's not a lot of emphasis on that. But she was an outstanding player. Thrower. She had the longest distance throw of any female athlete in high school during her career, some 140 feet. At basketball games, I would always sit with Dan Schrag, whose daughter was Betsy's best friend. Dan and I, sitting in the bleachers, always reminded me of the two grumpy old Muppets sitting in the balcony and critical of everything. We had our fair share of complaints, but our most verbal and frequent one was always aimed at our daughters. We never thought they shot enough. So you would often hear one of us and then the other yelling to our daughters, "Shoot the ball!" Now Betsy is the one dishing out the advice to coaches, refs, and to her children. Quick word about Betsy's children. They are all athletes. Tyler and Katie are not the natural athlete their mother was. In fact, there was a time when I thought they might never be athletes, as they were not quick, had limited jumping ability, and were flat-footed. But through hard work, perseverance, special training, clinics, many practices, and many, many games at a much earlier start than Betsy ever had, Betsy will tell you today that both Tyler and Katie are better athletes at their ages than she was at the same ages. Sarah, I think, might be the natural, but at this time will only tell how good she'll get. Guys, your mother is extremely proud of your accomplishments. I know I am, but Tyler and Katie, just one bit of advice. Shoot the damn ball. Sarah, I don't need to tell you that. You have no trouble letting it fly. Betsy, your mother and I are proud of your athletic accomplishments, but it is the things you have accomplished in your personal and professional life as well that make you a real Hall of Famer. But of course, I take credit for that too. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the amazing partnership that you have with Matt and the support he has provided. Thanks, Matt. It is now my pleasure to present Betsy Anderson McShay for induction into the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
Okay, first, if you wanted it to be a short speech, you should have started with A. That's my first thing. And you can see we upgraded from generation paper to now iPad, as we look here. I also wanted just to say a couple words. I thank my father for obviously being my presenter. He has been an inspiration in my life, obviously in sports and outside of sports, and it's a great honor to have him speak on my behalf. It is an honor to be selected to the inaugural Rockville High School Hall of Fame. I'm humbled to be amongst these inductees, or this year's inductees. It's an unbelievable class, and I'm thankful for the consideration. I would like to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to represent Rockville High School athletes, but more importantly, I'd like to thank them for giving me back bragging rights in my household, since my husband has been a Hall of Famer for most of our marriage. Honey, the household championship now goes on my side of the bed. In all seriousness, it is an unbelievable honor to be a part of this Hall of Fame celebration, and there are a few people I would like to share this award with. First, I can't even imagine what my high school career would have been like if I didn't have the love and support of my parents, John and Donna Anderson. They drove me to countless practices, attended every one of my track, basketball, and soccer games, rain or shine. I could always hear them cheering enthusiastically on the sidelines, sometimes too enthusiastically, and my teammates and I looked forward to the many times when my mom would bring a plate of cookies or brownies for after the game. As an athlete, I am blessed to be a wonderful mix of both my mom and dad. I had my dad athleticism, competitive toughness, sports IQ, which propelled me to be a varsity athlete in 3 sports. My mom's generous nature and kindness showed me how to win and lose gracefully, to be a good teammate and focus on the important things in life. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for always giving me the best in life and allowing me or making me the best athlete and person I could be. This induction is a tribute to your impact in my life, and I will always appreciate what you have done for me. I had a wonderful 4 years at Rockville, both athletically and academically. I had friends, teachers, and coaches who supported me on and off the field and allowed me to be myself. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank 2 of my favorites, and those are my basketball coaches, Jim Martello and Art Wheelock, aka Burt and Wheels. They were instrumental in helping our team, a basketball team, to develop a cohesiveness that served us well, sending us to a state championship game. They celebrated my various achievements and comforted me when I wasn't able to bring the trophy home. They helped me become a leader in the sports I played and develop a balance between training for the competition and enjoyment of the game. You both are 2 Hall of Famers to me and will always be. Although my teammates and high school friends could not be here today, I want to say thanks for being my support system during high school and keeping me emotionally strong. They accepted that I was a jock and even gave me the strangest nickname I have ever heard of, which was Boompois, which, to be honest, I still don't even know what a Boompois is. Some of my best memories are of the many bus rides with my teammates where we would sing and act out the words to every song on the Footloose soundtrack. They were there during high school's highs and lows and helped me become a well-rounded person and a team player. I am truly blessed to have had the success I did in sports at Rockville High School. I hope my career and accomplishments inspire other young female athletes to achieve their dreams. Rockville did that for me. My career at Rockville helped me receive a full basketball scholarship at University of Hartford, which then led me to American University where I completed my PhD. But more importantly, where I met an amazing man, my husband, Matthew McShay. Matt, I couldn't imagine my life without you in it. Your love and support mean the world to me. Thank you for making me feel special every day and being an unbelievable father to our 3 beautiful children, Tyler, Katie, and Sarah. I look forward to watching with you your future athletic and academic successes. I would like to end by saying Happy Father's Day to everybody. Thank you for letting me share in this wonderful day with you. Happy Father's Day, Matt. Happy Father's Day, Dad. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers that are out there. Again, it's been a pleasure to share in this day with you, and I appreciate this honor. Thank you.
Let me say a few words about the next inductee before I invite them up to the stage. Our next inductee, Joe Kalachi Jr., is a 1970 graduate of Rockville High School. Between the mid-60s and 1970 when he graduated, much of the credit for turning the program around has to be given to Joe, an explosive running back on offense, a hard-hitting safety on defense under head coach Jerry Fitzgerald. As a senior, Little Joe, in quotation marks, was named Parade Magazine Honorable Mention, All-American, and selected to the prestigious New Haven Register Class A All-State First Team. Kalachi was additionally named All-Conference on both offense and defense that season, where he broke both state records in points and touchdown records in the final game of his career. Kalachi, who has been self-employed for 25 years, resides in Vernon with his wife, Teresa, and teenage son, Christopher, and has been actively involved in Vernon youth baseball for more than a decade. Please come to the stage, John Kalachi Jr. and his teammate, Sonny LaPointe.
Thanks, Joe, for this opportunity. I know Joe doesn't like the spotlight, but those of us that know Joe enjoy putting a little pressure on him, making him squirm a little bit, so we enjoy that. I've played sports, I've coached sports, I've been an athletic trainer, but my most memorable experience has been watching Joe play sports. He was an incredible athlete to watch, displaying his incredible skills, and also being his teammate in football and baseball. But most of all, from that sports experience, I've developed a close friendship. Joe is like a brother to me. I admire and respect him. He's a great dad. And with that, it's my pleasure to present Joe Kalachi to the Athletic Rockville High Hall of Fame.
I'm from the old school. Thank you so much. My brother from another mother.
We knew he'd cry.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to wish all of you a happy Father's Day. I was expecting breakfast to be made for me this morning by my 15-year-old son. But when he gets up 3 hours after you, it ends up being the other way around. I had breakfast ready for him. I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Teresa, my son, Chris, my brother, Mick, and if I don't say this, I'll hear it for the rest of my life, my favorite sister-in-law, Judy. My mother-in-law, Fran Shane, and especially my 93-year-old mother, Christine. Don't worry, Mom, if you can't hear me, I made a copy of this, all right? And I'll give it to you after. Dedication, hard work, sacrifice, commitment, putting others first. This is what I learned from RHS. 100 hours of batting practice will lead to a much-needed RBI. Touchdowns are only earned after weeks of practice in the rain. Two-a-days lead to Saturday victories. And when competitors become teammates, they also become lifelong friends. I learned it was never about me. It was always about the team. Dedication, hard work, sacrifice, commitment, and putting others first. This is a code of ethics that was instilled in me. And these are the values that have guided me throughout my adult life. And these are the same values that I now share and work to instill in the young athletes that I coach today. It is my hope that one day they will feel the same pride that I always felt when playing for RHS. RHS taught me how to play football and baseball, but more importantly, RHS taught me the values I needed to live my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Very, very nicely done, and congratulations. Our next inductee, John Canterbury Sr., is deceased, but he was a member of the RHS athletic coaching staff from 1952 through 1967. He also served as Director of Physical Education and Athletics in the town of Vernon. In his career, Canterbury coached soccer, basketball, and baseball, all in the same year in the mid-50s. Canterbury went on to be recognized as Connecticut's Coach of the Year in basketball later in his career. He was inducted into the Central Connecticut State University Hall of Fame in 1984. At Rockville, Canterbury helped engineer the reintroduction of soccer to the RHS athletic program. Mr. Canterbury passed away in 2001 at the age of 75 and is survived by his wife, Patricia, who was a retired teacher in the Vernon school system herself and 4 grown children. I would like to invite John Canterbury Jr. to the stage to accept for his dad. John?
Thank you very much. John Canterbury, class of '77. It's nice to be back here. It's particularly nice to be back here and hear some of these stories about my dad, from his students and his athletes, and the time that they had here. He's a pretty good-looking guy, too. I always thought Dad had a life that was a huge success. He was born relatively poor in Hoboken, New Jersey. He played sports as a kid in the streets. He was the first in his family to graduate high school, to graduate college, to get a master's degree, which he got 2. He always told me he saw sports as a means of staying out of trouble, and also a means of getting a good education. I like to think some of that rubbed off on me. He played all sports as a kid, but when he got to high school, he was told he was too small, he was my size, to play varsity basketball. But Dad persisted and eventually played varsity soccer, baseball, was named to the all-state team for basketball in New Jersey. Graduated high school in '43, went out to the Army, as many people did at that time, where he was stationed in Japan during the occupation. But like he would, he managed to organize a basketball league while he was there to let off steam and keep the morale high. After the service, he was recruited to play basketball at the Teachers College of Connecticut, now Central Connecticut State University, where he started for 4 years and was eventually elected to the Hall of Fame in 1984. After graduation, Dad came to Vernon to teach at Maple Street School, and then accepted the job as the athletic director and the head basketball coach in 1952. He also coached soccer and baseball, among other things. He coached basketball from '52 to '67, had many winning seasons, was named Connecticut Coach of the Year in 1965. Dad would have been proud of the 2 stars that are also being inducted today that played for him, Alan Putz and Jim Martello. Jim recently told me a story. He remembered Dad as having the best 2-handed set shot of anyone on his team, and he challenged them regularly. He'd get a big kick out of that today. Dad left Rockville in '67 in order to get into the college coaching ranks. He went to Buffalo State College and then moved on later to the Greater Hartford Community College, where he coached and then became the Dean of Continuing Education before retiring in 1983. So as you can see, Dad made huge strides in his life, both athletically and academically. I think RHS played a major role in that. He would have wanted to thank Superintendent Ray Ramsdale and Principal Marty Fagan, who fully supported us expanding the sports programs in those days during his time at RHS. The thing I remember most is Dad had as strong a sense of right from wrong, as anyone I've ever known. That's the way I'd like to remember him today. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to present my father, the inductee for induction into the Rockville High School Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. That was nicely done. Thank you. Our next inductee, Tom Dunn, Waterbury native, longtime Manchester resident. Tom Dunn is the most successful football coach in RHS history. In 26 seasons between 1979 and 2004, Dunn led the Rams to 3 berths in the Class L state title game in a 7-year span, 6 conference championships, and an overall record of 148, 115, and 8. In 1990, the Rams won the only state title in program history, and Dunn was elected Coach of the Year by the Northern Connecticut chapter of the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame for the 2nd time. For those of us who were there that very cold, I think it was a Friday night, incredible, unforgettable moment when Steve Mikulski lobbed it to Mike Leary with about just a couple of seconds left in the game. An iconic moment for Rockville High School in Tom Dunn's career, and for those of us who are here, I know you're never going to forget it. Tom Dunn earned his bachelor's in phys ed from the University of Notre Dame, where he was a 1960 junior heavyweight boxing champion and undertook additional coursework toward a master's degree from Penn State. Tom Dunn Matt Buckler, please come to the stage. Congratulations, Tom, on your election.
Now I know getting elected to the Rockville Hall of Fame is supposed to be very serious, and it's a very solemn occasion. But when I think of Friday night football at Rockville and all the games I covered, it just was a lot of fun. First of all, it was so much fun, you never knew what kind of offense that Rockville was going to be in. It could be the run and shoot one week, the power I formation the next. Instead of X's and O's in their playbook, they had question marks because they didn't know themselves what they were going to do from game to game. They had the Delaware formation, the I formation, T formation, letters of the alphabet I never heard of before. They ran that offense, and of course, we cannot forget the lonesome polecat. No matter how much we try to forget it, it is as much a part of Rockville football history as the Leary Lob. He cultivated, and then after the game, it would be entertainment. Coach Dunn, he pulled no punches in his post-game discussions to the reporters. It was like the Tonight Show. Just was so much fun. Of course, I never went to practice. I don't think it was so much fun then, and I don't think it was like the Tonight Show. It was probably more like the Sons of Anarchy. But the results speak for itself. Coach Dunn cultivated an image of a Rockville High School football player. They were hungrier than anybody else. They were more dedicated than anybody else. Maybe they were crazier than anybody else. He said there was something in the water, that a kid would be born in Rockville that would kick the slats out of the cradle, put a helmet, and head to the practice field. And the thing is, the kids bought into it. And for all those years that Tom Dunn was a coach, that is the way Rockville played. Maybe a little hungrier, a little nastier, and maybe not always the most talented teams on the field, but always the most dedicated. Coach Dunn, the one thing you can always count on him, he talked the talk, but he always walked the walk. He always spoke his mind. There was one time that stood out. 1989, after Rockville finished the team undefeated and they were going to play for the championship game against West Haven, they have a press conference where all the coaches of all the teams involved in the championship games assembled. Mike Leary, if you took a video of this press conference, you would have won another Emmy Award. Because Coach Dunn went on a rampage. He says, West Haven, they play on turf, they have turf shoes, we don't have turf shoes. It was entertaining. After the press conference was over, one of the other writers said, do you get to cover this guy all the time? I said, yeah. He said, what a lucky man you are, because the coaches I cover are so dull. Then after the game was over, I kind of forget the final result, or I don't think it went too good. The conversation after the game wasn't about turf shoes. It was about West Haven and how great they played and how they were the better team. And it was about how bad he felt for the dedicated kids on his team that the last game of the season, and in many cases, the last game of their careers, went that way. It was all about the kids, like it always was. No excuses, always took the high road. There was one instance that stood out to me when I think of Tom Dunn, and they happened 1 year apart. It was one night on a Friday night, that one of the better Rockville teams, they were getting beat, and the other team kind of wanted to run up the score. They put their starters back in to get a couple of touchdowns. After the game, I said, well, Coach, are you happy that you think they might have ran up the score? He said, no, we were just beat by a better team. Didn't say anything about it. Now we turn the clock ahead 1 year. The same two teams are at it, and this time, Rockville is clearly dominating. And I'm sitting in the press box saying, payback is going to be great to see. This is going to be interesting. What did I see? In the second quarter, Coach Dunn pulled the starters out of the game. Because there was something that's more important than payback. It is being loyal to yourself. It is taking the high road. And when I think of Coach Dunn, that's what I always think. He has always taken the high road. Wasn't easy to play for Rockville. I'm sure there were some programs, they might have let a lot of stuff go that they never did at Rockville. But the bottom line is, the kids they produced, and many of them we see today. I'm glad Dave Smith gave his one-loss record, because to tell you the truth, I didn't know it. Because with Tom Dunn, it isn't about the W's and the L's. It's about the why. Why do you become a football coach? And I think the reason is pretty obvious. It's just to help change the lives of some great kids by teaching them how to play the greatest team sport in the world. That's what Tom Dunn did during all his career. And it wasn't just the stars, I remember, as he said earlier today, it's everyone who went through the program and stayed there for 4 years was better off than when they came in. There's one more thing I remember about Coach Dunn. One thing he told me all the time. He said, during a Friday night at Rockville High School, when he's standing on the sideline, the band is playing, his team is out in the field, the people are cheering. He said there's no other place on God's green earth that he would rather be. It was also fun to watch him too. It is now my pleasure to present Tom Dunn for induction to the Rockville High School Hall of Fame.
If anybody's wondering why I'm moving a little slow, it's I kind of hurt my back a little bit. I was practicing one of my routines for Dancing with the Stars, and I had to do some lifts with Christy Alley. Slow me down just a little bit. But I want to congratulate my fellow inductees, and I want to thank everybody involved in the planning and execution of this gala event, this great event. And in particular, thank all of you for coming out and showing your support, and to thank the committee, in particular Scott Smith, for thinking it proper to give a pat on the back to an old man that just used to wear a whistle. And that's all I ever was. Just another guy with a whistle, who happened to have the greatest job in the world. I was a high school football coach. And let me tell you something about the term coach. That's sacred to me, second only to the title dad. I was not only a high school football coach, I was a high school football coach in the best institution in New England, the Rock. It doesn't get any better than that. All I ever wanted to do in life was go out and throw the ball around with a bunch of guys. And I did that my entire life, and for 42 years, they even paid me for it. Doesn't get better than that. Doesn't get better than that. Too many blows to the head. I stand here today to accept this award, not for myself, but for all those people who were involved in the success of the program over the years. People like Matt Buckler over here, who with Bo Klinsky was one of the 2 best scholastic sports writers anywhere in New England. Matt could go to a game on Thanksgiving Day between 2 teams that hadn't won all year, like Enfield and Furman. And he could write it up like it was the Super Bowl championship and they were playing in the Rose Bowl. Parents like Bill and Barbara Gilson. And there were no parents like Bill and Barbara Gilson. They were one of a kind. Okay, Teen Mom and Teen Dad. The success we had was directly related to the efforts of Bill and Barbara Gilson. We wouldn't have those lights up on the field if it wasn't for those guys. Fantastic job. And then there's my own staff. Loyal, hardworking, Artie Wheelock, Dennis Flowers, Pat Cox, Charlie Russell, Howard Johnson for 35 minutes, I think. 40. And then my old fishing buddy, one of my closest friends, and one with my son, one of the few people that I'd share a foxhole with, and that's Coach Joe Wachowski. And then there were the players, those beautiful young men who strapped that helmet on, and they would do anything you asked of them. Anything you asked. Gentlemen, it was my honor to share the playing field with you. I certainly learned more from you than you ever learned from me. But together we did learn some things. We learned that you can accomplish almost anything if you don't care who gets the credit. That you should always shoot for the stars, because the worst that can happen is you land on the moon. And man's reach should exceed his grasp, else what is heaven for? And lastly, the most important person in my life, my lovely wife, Sandy. I received a few awards and rewards along the way, but the greatest reward I ever got was when she said I do. For over 50 years, she's been my soulmate. 48 plus my wife. My lover, the mother of my children, my biggest fan, my biggest critic, my disciplinarian, and certainly the best part of me. The other day we were sitting in the living room, and she turned to me and she said, let's make a bucket list. Let's make a bucket list of things that we want to accomplish before it's over. And I looked at her, I said, I can't do that because my bucket is full. There's nothing that I want to accomplish that hasn't come to me in life. If I had to do all over again, I'd want it the same. I'd want to be born in the United States. I'd want to go to University of Notre Dame. I'd want to win a boxing championship. I'd want to coach football at Rockville. And I want to spend the rest of my life with the woman of my dreams. Life has been good. And I'm going to close by quoting words said over 2,000 years ago by the Greek philosopher Sophocles. One must wait till the evening before we know how splendid the day has been. I stand before you right now with a big smile on my face, and I can tell you, in the evening of my years, my day has been truly splendid. Once again, congratulations to all the inductees. Thank everybody for coming. Thank the committee. God bless you all. I love you, and the Rams are still number one.
Are you kidding? Everybody in any other place is in the wrong place. They don't even know what they're missing. Tommy, thank you very much. That was really well done. Our next inductee, a 1933 graduate of Rockville High School, Fran Geisler, native of Broadbrook. He was one of the 2 charter inductees who taught, coached, and played at RHS. Geisler played 4 years of basketball, 3 years of baseball at Rockville. And along the way, without question, he made an indelible impression on people for his integrity, commitment to education, sense of fair play, and a single-minded devotion to his classmates, teammates, coaches, and later to his students and players. Nicknamed Gus as a student at RHS, he was voted best-natured, best all-around, and class athlete by a vote of his classmates before graduating in a class of 86. Today, he is receiving Charter Hall of Fame status for the 3rd time, following his 1986 enshrinement into the Eastern Connecticut State University E-Club Hall of Fame and his 2000 induction into the Rockville Wall of Honor. Geisler earned a master's degree in education from Springfield, later undertook additional coursework at Yale, Penn, and NYU. Throughout 67 years of marriage, the late Francis and Dorothy Geisler raised 4 children, among them Dave, who followed in his father's footsteps as a teacher and coach at RHS. Mr. Geisler passed away in 2009 at the age of 93, and at his funeral, 3 of his former players served as pallbearers. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce his presenter, Don Berger, and his son, Dave Geisler, will say a few words.
I think I'm the oldest one here, probably, although Bill Dietrich might be close, so close, anyway. Coach Geisler was my high school coach back a few years ago, and I played both soccer and basketball with him, for him. As a coach, he was rather tough at times. He was a no-nonsense type of guy. I can remember, although it's almost 65 years ago, I can remember at one of the practices, I don't know whether I missed the pass or threw the ball out of bounds, but he said to me, Berger, if you hadn't been in Finky Finley's, in the rumble seat of Finky Finley's car last night, this wouldn't have happened. I couldn't believe, Dave and I talked about it, he had a network of spies. I'm not kidding. He knew everything, And Finky, that was his nickname. His real name was Clarence, so hence it, we always called him Finky. Anyway, he coached, an interesting thing is he coached all 3 sports here at Rockville, which was the pattern back then. But he also coached the varsity in each of these sports. He coached the varsity, the JVs, and the freshman team. And with no assistant. Can you imagine? You know, wouldn't happen today. I have my wrong glasses on. I can't see with the paper here. Anyway, he had a profound influence on many of the athletes here, as you might expect. But he was also had a great influence on non-athletes as well. There's one fellow that he's still living and lives in Oregon. He was not an athlete, and I was privileged to see some of the letters that were sent to Frank over the years, and I can find them here. Yeah, just bear with me. Not often that we get a chance to thank someone after the passage of 50 years. Thanks for being a positive influence in the lives of so many of us. This is the key here. Most will remember you as the coach, but there's more to it than that. You were a teacher with a capital T. He also went on to say, at the beginning of our senior year, one of our classmates, Carl Abrahamson, was killed in an automobile accident. I remember, it was a Sunday morning, I remember it very clearly, because I'm on my way to church, and the people who were in the car stopped and said, "We're taking a ride to Crystal Lake, do you want to go?" And I said, no, I better go to church. So that was one of my luckier days. Bill, this is Bill Funder I'm talking about. His concern, your concern for us as individuals and for what the future held for us was apparent in the daily conversations you had with each of us, encouraging us to keep focused on getting education, which you knew would be so important to our future well-being. This is done in the same manner as when pushing us to improve physically in gym classes. So be building in us the desire to succeed. He apparently was at, well, the kids remember this, but Bill said, I remember being at your house, perhaps the day before you were to report for induction into the Army. We were in a state of denial, I think, unable to believe that you would not be there when we went to school the next day. At that age, we weren't used to saying goodbye to people who were prominent in our lives. One of his great success stories involves a fellow by the name of Lenny Tucker. I was instrumental in getting Lenny onto the Wall of Honor, much deserved as Frank's induction here. He was a kid that was not from the best of beginnings, and he spent a lot of his time at the pool room down on Market Street in Rockville. But Frank, he had he had great athletic talents, and Frank got hold of them. He salvaged them, I think were the words that was used, from the pool room. And Lenny played 3 years of basketball, baseball, and soccer. He went on to great heights. He got his master's degree, his PhD. He was the assistant commissioner of education in New York State, and they ended up as the director of the Massachusetts Historical Society. And you know the history of Boston and Massachusetts, and it was a very prestigious position. And he attributed it to a great extent to Frank. And Lenny, he's still living up in the Boston area. Doesn't travel anymore, but I'm sure if he were to travel, he would be here today. But he was he wrote 8 books, believe this or not, 8 books. And in the first book, the first page was a tribute to Frank Geisler and what he had done from him, picked him up by the bootstraps and made him into the person that he turned out to be. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Frank's wife, Dorothy. All 5 of my sons played sports here at Rockville High. And I said to them the other day, do you know, with all the coaches you had, do you know the first name of any of the coaches' wives? And they thought for a bit, and they said, no, I don't know any of them. But we all knew Dorothy, Mrs. Geisler actually, but we knew her as Dorothy. And she was, I never saw her at practice, but she did go to practically every game, and it was just a wonderful experience to know her, a very genteel lady. And she never washed my uniform, but rumor has it she did wash some uniforms of the players, but she was a great, great lady. I think I covered it. I did want to mention one of the things that Lenny put in his letter, which was very, very negative, very true, and that was that what made him different from any other teachers I had in my youth? The answer is very simple. I had a number of teachers who cared about their students, but the coach cared more. He was the quintessential teacher. He saw a glimmer of potential in a kid. He went to work and brought that to fruition. So it's a pleasure, distinct pleasure on my part to present the, where's my thing I'm supposed to read here? It's now my distinct pleasure to present Francis E. Geisler with induction into the Rockville High School Hall of Fame.
I'm not supposed to speak. Don was supposed to have our words, but something came up. And that was with my father, excuse me, coaching three games a day. In basketball season, he could wind up with 12 wins in 2 weeks, which is more wins than I'd have in a year. So it's been a little bit humiliating. I want to thank Scott and Bob and the committee for putting on such a wonderful day. And one of the things that my father would always say on a regular basis, he won many awards and honors, like the naming of the gym at Eastern after him, that kind of thing. But the one thing he would say is that his years at Rockville High School were the most rewarding and happiest years of his professional career. And that was due to the dedicated ball players, their hard work, their integrity. And after they left school, they went on and became outstanding citizens in their communities. And that's what he prided most in. So we would like to thank the committee, the honorees. I coached with 3 of the 4 honorees and knew of the 4th one. and all absolutely well-deserving of the award, as well as the athletes. I've seen a lot of the athletes play, and I've, of course, heard of the other ones that had come before us, or before me, and they just did an outstanding job. So our family could not be happier and spend a nicer day than spending the day today on Father's Day here in this assembly. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well done. Sometimes it works out for the better that our next inductee, Harry Garrity, would be come right after Dave Geisler, one of his all-time favorite people and best friends. Our next inductee, Harry Garrity, deceased. Here at Rockville, he coached boys and girls cross country, girls track and field, boys basketball for a total of 33 seasons between the winter of 1973 and the fall of 1995. In 14 cross-country seasons, the New York native led the Rams to 11 boys and girls conference championships. In an 8-year span in cross-country, Garrity directed the RHS boys and girls teams to 3 state titles. He's got 3 banners in that gym down there, and 5 second-place finishers. The longtime Ellington native was named Connecticut High School Coaches Association Girls Cross Country Coach of the Year after his 2nd straight state championship in 1986, and was inducted into the CHSCA Hall of Fame in 2002. In the fall of 2012, the Harry Garrity Cross Country Invitational was created and hosted here at Rockville. After a 3-year hitch in the Marine Corps, Garrity graduated from St. Bonaventure, bachelor's degree in education, went on to earn his master's from Trinity in Hartford. Passed away in November 2012 at the age of 78. Today he is represented by his daughter Dee Dee Garrity, and she will be presented by Harry's brother-in-law and Dee Dee's uncle, Mark Waxenberg. So congratulations, please come.
Thank you very much for the honor that you're bestowing upon my brother-in-law, upon the induction today. And Harry, in his career in coaching, spanned over 50 years in the state of Connecticut, the last over 27 to 30 years here at Rockville. And basically, Harry's teaching and coaching was the essence of his being. I mean, he lived it, he breathed it, and it was not just the accolades that he received. It was the passion that he felt about the sport and about the students that he coached and taught, and assuring that they become not only great athletes to the best of their ability, but they become the best that they could be as young men and young women, to the heights that they could achieve as citizens in our country. And I'd just like to say that probably the best recognition that Harry ever got was by a former athlete who said he always saw more in me than I saw in myself. And that's a tremendous statement, I think, to have a former athlete and young woman say for a coach and a mentor. So it is my pleasure to present Harry's daughter, Deanna, with her father's plaque for the induction into the Rockville High School Athlete Hall of Fame.
Hi, thank you. I'm Deanna, Harry's daughter, and I have to say thank you to the committee. What a wonderful honor to be here honoring my dad on Father's Day. Without further ado, I am going to let you all continue with the rest of the inductees, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, Dee Dee, nicely done. At this point, I would like to invite Susan to come on the stage. Our next inductee, Susan Golden Perella. Susan, 1999 graduate of RHS. A captain for her 3 sports teams during her senior year, and all 3 were CC East champions. To cap off her senior year cross country, she was 4th in the state open and earned all-state honors. At the end of her indoor track season, she won the state open in the 800 and earned all-state honors. During her senior year, she led her outdoor track team to the Class L state championship. And after her team won the Class L championship, she won the state open in the 800 and earned all-state honors. She went on to finish 2nd in New England in the 800 and placed in the top 20 in the country in that event. She set multiple school records, 200, 400, 5 and 600, both indoor track distances, and of course her specialty, the 800. She still holds the school record in the 400 and the 800. Sue was the first female to earn JI Athlete of the Week. And she set the state record for the 800 within a heptathlon. After Rockville, she went on to Marist, a D1 program, and set some school records there in the 800 and in the 1,000. And there she was the Athlete of the Year at Marist for her graduating class and was their first athlete to place in the ECAC championships. As Susan once said, I will always remember my high school coaches and teammates, and I will always be grateful for how they pushed me to do my very best and to keep my standards high. And they still play an influence in some decisions I make, even as an adult. I have an iconic memory of Sue. During the state open, her senior year, I was officiating the discus, and so in the sector, I was in the middle of the football field. Of course, the track surrounded it, and I was able to get the best view of her 800 victory that day. And it was amazing because her margin of victory was nearly 25 yards, as I remember, and in a distance of 800, to win by 25 yards is outstanding. So it was astonishing. The second place runner might have been in another zip code. She still stays fit, enters a few road races from time to time, and she tells me that when she tried a triathlon, she almost drowned, and so that was the end of that. Lives in Southington with her husband, Brian, and 2 boys, and it's now my pleasure to present Susan Golden Perella for induction into the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
Obviously, thank you to the committee. This is a great honor, as all the other inductees have mentioned. It was also great going through all my old scrapbooks and memories and pictures, just looking at my high school career in general, coming up with the Hall of Fame questionnaire. So I started out my running career in middle school, where Coach Smith was my coach. She started coaching me in 7th grade, but I always knew I'd be a runner before then. I played all, the traditional sports, softball, soccer, but the only piece I was really good at was the running part. And also my older sisters, Leonard and Colleen, both ran, and I always seemed to follow in their footsteps, so I always knew I would run for Rockville. After Rockville, I ran for Marist, as Coach Smith said, and I still do road races, and he is right. I tried one triathlon and put my bike away because I did almost drown. So I do just stick with road races now. When I look back on my running career, my fondest moments are at Rockville High School. Just really loved running here. It's really when I developed a passion for the sport. And obviously I have to thank my dedicated family who came to all my races, my teammates and my coaches. As I mentioned, Coach Smith was my first coach, and he also finished out my high school career with cross country. My favorite memory of Coach Smith is right before the state open. I thought I'd run maybe 15, maybe top 15, 20 in the state. He announces, no, I think you're going to be top 10, not, maybe even top 5. Everyone being like, geez, coach, way to set the standard in front of my whole teammates, but that year I did get 4th, so it was great just having coaches that really believed in me and really knew how to coach me. Garrity, fellow nominee, was also my coach for cross country my freshman and sophomore year. He also coached my sisters, so we had a good family connection there. And even when he went on to our rivals over at South Windsor, he still always, rooted for me and was looking out for me. Now, my favorite sport was really track. Coach Brophy was my coach all 4 years. Just like Coach Smith, he just had a great belief for me. I remember he set a goal for me my senior year to to qualify for junior nationals. And at that time, it was 2:15 and 800, and I was probably running like a 2:20. And I was like, man, that is a lofty goal. But by the end of the year, I was running 2:11. So again, it was just really great to have such supportive coaches who really believed in me. And one thing I loved about Coach Brophy and the program here at Rockville is I think I tried every event in track. I wasn't very good in every event, but I think I tried every event but discus. So that was awesome. I think that was really what made me love the sport, just being able to try all sorts of different things. And last but not least, my sister was my assistant coach, Leanne, over there. She also taught here. So that was awesome, having my own personal cheerleader that was forced to come to all of my races and practices. But my whole family came to all of my races, which was great. My parents came to all of my races, giving up, basically all their Saturdays and their weeknights, and even when I was in college, driving 2 hours to watch me run a little over 2 minutes, and then, driving 2 hours home. So it's really great having such a supportive family. My husband, Brian, was also a runner. It's kind of how we met. We met at Marist College, where we both ran. He was also a fellow Connecticut high school runner, ran for Xavier. I think we got second in nationals for the steeplechase. So that's great. And we now have 2 kids at home, like Coach Nick mentioned, a 3-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old, and another sibling on the way. So one can only hope that we've bred some fast children, so I hope I get to, watch them be successful one day in their athletic career. Thank you.
Sorry, this is so cool. Our next inductee is a 2000 graduate of Rockville High School, Mike Leonard. Mike Leonard played 4 years of baseball under Art Wheelock and 3 years of ice hockey under Chris Stevenson, leading the baseball team to consecutive berths in the state championship and the 2000 Class L state title. A right-handed hitting catcher and 2-sport captain, 6-foot, 210-pound Leonard was honored as the Connecticut Gatorade and Hartford Current Player of the Year as a senior, and when he repeated all-state honors. A 3-time all-conference baseball selection, Leonard was also a State Scholar Athlete Award winner and an all-conference selection as a hockey goalie. He played 3 seasons in the Red Sox organization, reaching the AA level after batting 300 with a single A Lowell Spinners. Leonard holds a master's degree in educational leadership from St. Lawrence University, has served as head baseball coach and leadership coordinator at Bates College since 2011. Mike and his wife Megan reside in Monmouth, Maine, with an infant daughter Adeline. It gives me great pleasure to invite Mike and his presenter Art Wheelock to the stage.
Joe, old school too. Hey, good afternoon. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce one of my former players. He was all-conference in hockey. He was all-conference in baseball for 3 years, playing shortstop, catcher, and according to him, pitcher. He was all-state 2 years running in baseball. His senior year, he was named Hartford Current Player of the Year. And the top honor for any athlete from any state, the Gatorade Baseball Player of the Year. I believe the only athlete there are just to receive such an honor. He led us to 2 straight state finals, winning the 2000 championship in exciting fashion. More important than these deserving honors is that he was a true leader. He led with an unmatched work ethic. He would organize off-season workouts and led by example. Winning was not about individual honors, rather a team accomplishment. He was a feared hitter. Without a doubt, he hit the ball harder than anyone I've coached in 40 years. He was also my Charlie Hustle. He could probably come off the field after an offensive half and get his gear on and behind the plate in 15 seconds. He epitomized my 20 runs ahead, 20 runs behind rule, always hustle. He was no slouch in the classroom either. He was our 2000 Scholar Athlete of the Year. He had pride in every aspect of his life. In my mind, he's not only a Hall of Fame athlete, but a Hall of Fame person. He cared deeply for his team and also for his coach.
In trying times, he would say to me, "Coach, don't worry, we have your back." I'll never forget that, and I'm forever indebted to him for it. I truly love him. I felt like a proud father when he became starting catcher at UConn and eventually played AA ball in the Red Sox organization. He's presently head coach at Bates College, and it is now my pleasure to present D. Michael Leonard III for induction into the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
What I was going to say playing out in my head, and then Coach Wheelock got sappy on me and completely threw me off my game, so I'm going to have to kind of revert back. But it's funny that I was a catcher, because if you look at that picture right there, it probably looks like I'm confused by the catcher's mask and have no idea what's going on. So thank you for choosing that picture, whoever picked that one. But this is truly an honor, and I think for me being the youngest person inducted into this Hall of Fame, when I received the call from Smitty, in addition to being a great honor, it was also a little bit of a slap in the face that my playing career has finally passed me by. The days of waiting for that call, for that next achievement, whether it is in baseball or what have you as a player, are now gone. And I can thank my beautiful wife for helping me come to that realization when I was kind of grinding it out in independent baseball when I was done playing. I had one more great idea, I'm going to play one more year, and she kind of gave me a look that said, you can go ahead and play one more year, but you're going to do it without me. And the best decision I ever made was not playing baseball and moving on into coaching. And now that I have the wonderful career of being a head baseball coach, I draw on all the lessons that I learned over my time as a player. And I think for any of us in athletics, as our career passes and the coaches that we have and we reflect back on them, we think very little of the X's and O's that we learned, the techniques that we learned, but the life lessons that we learned through playing sports and working with those coaches that stuck with us and mold and shape us. And I can remember my first practice in varsity with Coach Wheelock, being the very overconfident 15-year-old that I was, going on some rant about a summer baseball team that I played for and how good I was, and he said, "Mike, come here for a second. Can you do me a favor and not say I or me for the rest of the day?" And it's something that from that moment, a light switch went on, and the whole team concept finally grew into that. And I was fortunate to play on a ton of teams and play baseball for a very long time, but there are no teams and no memories that I hold more cherished than my memories here at Rockville High School. It's awesome to see one of my former teammates, Matt Schulman, in the room, and thinking back on our Rockville High School days and those state championship runs and finally winning our senior season. And for it, not for the people that I encountered during my time here, I would not be able to have achieved the things I did as a player, and certainly would not be able to be a coach at a great school like Bates College. So tremendous amount of respect and gratitude for everyone that supported me. And any of you that know my baseball career, my Rockville career, especially know that there's a big person missing who's not here, in my father. And I think that looking back on this and having these memories is something that I'll continue to cherish and hopefully one day be able to talk to my daughter about. But it's really nice to have the support of my mother and brother and sister here, who are equally as a part of that. But thank God that I had my mother as the grounding force, because if my father was still alive and was aware of this event, everyone in the state of Connecticut would have known that I was being inducted into the Rockville High School Hall of Fame. So, Smitty, that might be a bad thing for the committee, because you would have had a ton more publicity if my dad was still alive. So, a big thanks to the committee for inducting me, and thank you for everyone that's here.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very nicely done. It's a pleasure to listen to all this. Our next inductee, Jim Martello, 1965 graduate, Rockville High School. A three-sport letter winner, who went on to coach girls basketball for 24 seasons here between 1977 and 2001. As the most successful coach in RHS girls basketball history, Martello won 286 games and lost 202. With the Rams, Martello produced 18 state tournament qualifiers, 5 conference championship teams, and 4 teams which reached the state quarterfinals or beyond. In addition to girls basketball, Martello spent 8 years as JV and assistant baseball coach. As a player, Martello played 4 seasons of basketball and 2 of soccer under Hall of Fame coach John Canterbury, and 4 seasons of baseball under Ron Kozik. As a senior forward in basketball, quote-unquote, tall Jimmy Martello, and quote, complemented the muscle of Joe Van Odenhove and the playmaking and scoring skills of 2013 Hall of Famer Alan Putz, both classmates. After being presented RHS Outstanding Player Award as a senior, in recognition of his athletic and academic ability, Martello went on to a standout career at Wesleyan, where he received a bachelor's degree in classics. He also holds a master's degree in education from UConn. Gail and Jim Martello have 2 grown children, and they reside in Burnham. A great pleasure for me to invite Jim and his son Greg to the stage for induction.
Good afternoon, everybody. Seriously, how about that picture? So, there's a nickname that went along with him, and I now know where all that came from. Betsy, it all makes sense now. Happy Father's Day to everyone. This is a great day for our family. Obviously, me getting a chance to spend it with my father at a place that meant a lot to us. For those of you who don't know, my name is Greg Martello, and I'm Jimmy Martello's boy. I am Coach Martello's kid, and I am my father's son. Being a Rockville Ram has always been a source of great pride for me and my family. Whether tagging along to a JV baseball field when I was very small, or shooting baskets at the sideline of a basketball practice that I tagged along to, I realized very early that he and I, one of the many things we had in common was a passion for Rockville athletics. As an athlete here at Rockville, Jimmy Martello, as he was known back then, was a tall, slender right-hander. I still can't believe that skinny right-hander is him, but I guess it is. They got real pictures. He was a 3-sport athlete and the star of a pitching staff that was one of the most successful eras of baseball that Rockville has had. He averaged 9 strikeouts per game and once had a 35 consecutive innings scoreless inning streak. As a fellow pitcher at Rockville High School under Coach Wheelock myself, I am amazed by those kinds of numbers. I have very clear memories of walking the many fields that we went to, whether it was Legion Field or Henry Park or wherever it may be, that we visited kind of together, and all the older guys always asking me the same question. You know, are you going to be a ball player like your father? And I remember it driving me downstairs to the basement to look up the old, man, my father must have been some sort of a ball player or something, and seeing some of the names of the people that are in this room today now, Mr. Foisey and Mr. Putz, and I know Joe Van Odenhove is a family friend. All those names came into my life early on, learning about my father as an athlete and only knowing him as a coach as a kid. So that was a great education for me. As Coach Martello, he developed a girls basketball program only a few years removed from having 6 girls on each side of the floor, which I hadn't even known about until I started doing my own research, and turned that program into a program that produced 1,000-point scorers, consistent state tournament qualifiers, and with the help of fellow 2013 Hall of Fame inductee Betsy Anderson, I think the school's only appearance in a state basketball final. All in all, he collected 286 wins as the head girls basketball coach at Rockville, and I feel like I remember a lot of them. Some of the losses too, for sure. A fixture at RHS as an athlete, a coach, and a teacher for almost 40 years, I joked with him that there weren't a lot of people who had spent more time at the school than he had. And really, it is now my pleasure to present Jimmy Martello, Coach Martello, and my father, Jim Martello, for induction into the Rockville High School Athletic Hall.
Thank you, Gregory. It's me, Claude. Thank you for that consistent reminder that I am a unibrow. There are certain things that follow you forever, I guess. This is pretty much the perfect example of the expression, Happy Father's Day. On a day filled with thank yous and honors, let me start by saying thank you to all of you for being here and making this special ceremony part of your Father's Day. To my own family and friends, my neighbors, in particular, thank you for being here. I still feel a strong sense of place when I come into Rockville High School. Over half of my life has revolved around Rockville High. As a student athlete in the 60s, a teacher and coach in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. and even 4 post-retirement years as the public address announcer for the home football games. My pride today comes from a close connection to this first group of inductees. To be inducted into this Hall of Fame with my RHS basketball coach, John Canterbury, a basketball and baseball teammate at Rockville High School for 4 years, Alan Putz, a teammate of my brother's at RHS, Joe Kalachi, 2 colleagues and coaches I shared locker room space with, Garrity and Dunn. Our girls basketball program's most decorated and outstanding player, Betsy McShay. 3 students who went through my English class, Mike Leonard, Susan Perella, and Bill Romanowski. Fran Geisler, the father of my friend and coaching colleague Dave. And even my first Vernon Public Schools department head at VCMS, Ralph Schulman. The connection to them makes me feel tremendously proud and fortunate to be in such honored company. The baseball and basketball teams in the years 1961 to 1965 were arguably some of the best in the school's history. We came close to state championships in each sport. We made lifelong friendships. We were influenced by high-integrity coaches, Ron Kosick in baseball and John Canterbury in hoop. Coming back to RHS to teach and coach in the late 70s was exciting. I took on JV baseball coaching and girls varsity basketball. We certainly took our lumps in the first few years in girls basketball, and winning was scarce. In the mid-'80s, we started to produce tournament teams, conference contenders, scholarship players, and statewide respect. Building a program takes so many components. When everyone who meets every day for practice is committed to consistent attitude, energy, discipline, and concern for the others on the floor, special things develop. The development of a program, a good program, takes great people around you. Terrific assistant coaches like Art Wheelock at Argenta, loyal, supportive administrators, Dick Tingley originally, and Tom Allen, the RHS AD for most of the years I coached, is important. Extremely loyal fans and friends of the program. A great town recreation feeder program, and constant communication with the middle school. All of these things made a difference in our program's success. But the key ingredient, of course, is great athletes. We had a string of committed, energetic players who wanted to get better. 4 1,000-point scorers in Betsy, Sarah Turkington, Mandy McNamara, and Kim Jekyll, and dozens of quality players who specialized in pressure defense, assists, and rebounding. I'll bring in here what Tom Dunn said. So many of those players made our programs better because they didn't care who got the credit. When all those factors come together in a supportive community, it's fun to coach and watch teams grow and succeed together. RHS and I were beneficiaries of those great teammates and coaches in the 60s, and that support, loyalty, and energy when I coached. I will always remember fondly the years I played and coached here at RHS, and will always be proud of the successes these programs had. They're all part of what gives me a sense of place here at the Rock. I'd like to thank the committee for their commitment to bringing this concept of an athletic Hall of Fame to fruition. I value my place in this group, and I will work to continue the success and growth of the RHS Athletic Hall of Fame. My family, of course, has been a huge part of any good fortune I've had in my life. My wife, Gail, was literally a cheerleader for our 60s basketball teams and has been throughout my entire athletic career. My daughter, Jenny, was our team's manager in the 90s. And Greg, I can't thank you enough for coming up here from Florida for this day, giving up your Father's Day to be here. We are always at the other end of each other's phone, and every day I'm grateful for that special relationship. And I'm really proud I got through that. I'd like to thank you all for being here and sharing with this wonderful honor for all of us. Thank you.
Greg, Jim, thank you very much. Nicely done. Our next inductee, Alan Putz, 65 graduate of Rockville High School. He's a 4-year member of the basketball and baseball programs, playing guard in basketball and pitching and playing third base in baseball. And Alan also played soccer for 2 seasons. He was a 2-sport All-State selection who scored over 1,000 points in basketball as the program's first 1,000-point scorer, and gained all New England accolades in baseball. An All-American infielder at Springfield College in 1969, Putz was drafted 6 times by professional baseball, including the 27th round by the Pittsburgh Pirates after his senior year at RHS. Al grew up in Tolland, holds bachelor's and master's degrees from Springfield and advanced degrees from Southern and Central. Al spent a 36-year career in education and retirement lives in, I understand, Statesboro, Georgia, but I understand it might be Carolina, but correct me when you get up here, with his wife Charlotte. They have 2 grown children. A pleasure to bring Alan Putz as an inductee to the stage with his teammate Ken Foisey.
It's great to be back in the old hometown. It'll always be my hometown. For those of you who don't personally know Al or myself, we've been friends for over 50 years and teammates for over 20 years at every age level, beginning as 10-year-olds in the Rockville Little League and continuing on up to through Twilight League ball. Al always at third, me at short or second, and gentleman Jim Martello more often than not on the mound. Over that period of time, I've seen a lot of good hitters through college, semi-pro, and professional ball. But only a handful of those hitters had a certain something, that special thing that set them apart. Timing, eyesight, approach to hitting, whatever it was, that just caused the ball to explode off the bat. You can read a lot about Alan's statistics out in the hall there and on his plaque, but they don't tell the story of what kind of a player he was. When Al swung on contact, you heard a different crack, even on a routine grounder, although I don't know of Al hitting very many routine grounders. But the ball just exploded. It was different, it was special, and Alan had it. Now, I also had the good fortune of personally knowing, playing for, and coaching with another great hitter, the greatest hitter of all time, Ted Williams. That was while I was up at his baseball camp at Cape Cod the first 2 years after his retirement. During this period, we spoke virtually every day about hitting, and Ted was always one for giving instructions. To illustrate his point, he would often jump into the batting cage and take a few swings. Crack, crack, the ball would just explode. Everyone stopped when Ted was hitting, whether it was in the batting cage or in the game. I would then critique Ted in the batting cage, and if you believe that, that's a joke. I don't know if Al knew it at the time or if he realized it, but it was similar with Alan through his career. Even in batting practice, everybody stopped. Everybody watched. It was special. But to have a long career in the pros, you also have to remain healthy and have the good fortune to be in the right situation. Due to injuries, which started at RHS, Al lost his mobility and was eventually moved from third base to first. Worst competition, initially, was one Richie Dick Allen, and soon thereafter, a fellow by the name of Keith Hernandez came along. That's when Al became the DH. But wherever Al was, whether he was in AA, AAA, or playing for the big team during the spring, Al was always penciled in as the 3, 4, or 5 hitter on that team. One final story to sum up. For years after Al left the Twilight League and was in pro ball, and even today, players get together after the game and share stories and have a beer or two. And inevitably, the conversation comes around and gravitates to Al and some of his hitting feats. I remember one night sitting at the table with Mo Mohart. Mo Mohart played first base and was an outfielder for the Cubs in the early and mid-'60s. And his teammates were the likes of Lou Brock, Billy Williams, Ron Santo, and Ernie Let's Play Two Banks. I think there's some Hall of Fame names in that group. But when the conversation came around, as it always did to Alan, I asked Mo where he thought Al fit as a hitter. Well, Mo, who's seen them all and played against the likes of Mays, McCovey, and Aaron, Mo said Al could hit with the very best of them. So now it's my pleasure to present my friend, teammate, and a hitter who could hit with the very best of them, George Allen Putz, for induction into the Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Kenny, for your kind words, perhaps a bit exaggerated in some places, but I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be the second Springfield College inductee this afternoon. I'd like to thank my family, my friends, a number of my teammates from Springfield are here, and I appreciate everyone else who is here on Father's Day. I want to begin by thanking this committee for developing this program. This is an athletic-rich high school. It has been for an awful long time. And quite frankly, I've been wondering when a committee would be put together to so recognize past athletes, not for myself, but for everyone who has gone through these doors. If you haven't put on a uniform, you don't know the feeling of representing a school or an institution. Going out there getting dirty and sweaty, all for the good of the team. It's a special feeling, for sure. I'd like to thank the committee for putting together criteria that fit me and that got me up here today. When I thought about what I wanted to say today, the first thing that came to mind was how does a kid who lives in remote Tolland get to stand up here and receive this honor? I had my grandmother next door and two other houses within a mile of my house up on Mile Hill. I had no kids to play with in any way, shape, or form. And so I had to develop games. I was in the Red Sox lineup and the Celtics lineup each season. And I would narrate the games, knowing all the players, every swing that Williams or Malzone or one of these guys took when they make-believe grounded out. I was there, but you know, I always came through when it was my turn. No errors, and I always got base hits in crucial times. So looking back on it, it was pretty cute. I was lucky to be born with some God-given physical abilities, super hand-eye coordination, and over time developed a spirit and a can't lose, won't lose attitude. I didn't like losing, even in those fantasy games that I played up on Mile Hill year after year after year and season after season. I didn't like to lose. And that forced me to become a better player and to work harder. What else happened? Well, another reason I'm here is we lived in small town. Well, I was in Tolland, but our rec leagues were here in what was then small town Rockville. Everybody knew everybody here in town. It was that small. And what I believe has become probably the 3 or 4 most successful years in Rockville High School athletic history, 61 through 65, began here in town with the rec leagues that all of us guys, our team, participated in from the earliest of leagues. We grew up together as competitors, became friends, and became teammates all along that road. All of us won league championships in some sport as kids. So we were familiar with what winning means and what you have to do to win. And if we came in second in one of the rec leagues or something, that motivated us again to do better the next season when that sport came up. These things were, in my opinion, the building blocks, but alone were not the only things that has enabled me to be here this afternoon. There are a lot of people who gave up their time, money, year after year, sport after sport, to see that we, our team, continue to thrive and continue to grow. I have to certainly first and foremost comment on my dad. Like most parents back in the early to mid-50s, dads were actively involved in family life, and he gave me the opportunity to participate in any of the sports that were of the era, primarily, of course, basketball and baseball. And he gave me the leeway to play or not play. It was purely solely my decision. He didn't force me. I do think, though, that once he saw this twinkle in my eye, his time became my time. He very willingly was never too tired when he came home from work. Would pitch batting practice either in the backyard or at Northeast School, play catch, hit me grounders, shoot hoops. He was also left-handed, so we would hit sand wedges in the front yard trying to get him into a flower area that my mom had. Countless hours of time that he committed to me. And that certainly set my athletic foundation and the kind of man that he was. I hope that I'm filling his shoes as best as I can. How can we not thank our moms, all of us athletes, because either dinner had to be reheated or held for the whole family when we got home from a late practice or a late game. And I absolutely have to mention the men in the Rockville community who, again, gave so much to us guys. Jimmy's dad, Peter, the Bergers, Don and Bob, Frank McCoy, B.B. Melanese, John Gill, Coach Canterbury, Coach Kozak, and many, many others whose names I can't pull up right now. But these guys and so many others just committed themselves to this group of athletes and watched us and helped us to grow throughout our younger days. Thinking about our teams, and Jimmy mentioned or alluded to this as well, we were a tough group of athletes. They couldn't pitch around Alan Putz because the rest of our lineup would take care of business if I got pitched around. And in basketball, they couldn't throw some special defense at me because we had guys on that roster who could shoot lights out any night, any time. So playing Rockville was an awfully difficult thing back in those years in the 60s. And quite honestly, I think that our teams in basketball and baseball, we all could be here tonight, this afternoon, receiving this award. That's how good we were. And putting on a uniform and having a pretty darn good feeling you weren't going to get beat every night is awful comforting. But it didn't change our work ethic. We still worked as hard as we possibly could. The last person that I want to mention as part of my support group was that special cheerleader. Charlotte hijacked. Just give me a minute. While her friends were out doing their thing, she'd be home waiting for me to come back from a practice or a out-of-time game. If she wasn't at this practice or game, sitting on a hard bleacher for hours and hours, thousands of practices, thousands of games later. Just 3 days ago, we celebrated our 43rd anniversary, and she's the love of my life. And I guess why I get so emotional is my relationship with her mom, who passed away a while ago, or a few years ago, because she always had a sandwich for me or a special dessert whenever I knocked on that door after an athletic event of some kind. The aging process, the daily aches and pains, and 47 surgeries later. I've asked myself a million times, would I have done things differently as an athlete? And the answer each time is no. No. Was it worth all the pain that I go through every day? Absolutely yes. No doubt about it. I wouldn't have changed anything. I guess that's kind of the mentality of us jocks. We wouldn't have it any other way. We gave our all every day, practice, game, what have you. We spilled our blood on the field because that's what we were supposed to do, or at least that's how I played and believe that that's what we need to do. I'm going to end with 4 or 5 things that I recall so vividly that happened here at the high school during my time. Why these keep popping up, I don't know. Maybe they're funny, but they certainly have had an impact on me. First thing was, I made the travel team in basketball as a freshman to Plainville High School. And I know that I was as nervous there as perhaps I was when I stepped here on the stage just now. But I got in the ball game. Coach C put me in the game right towards the end, and somehow I got clear for a breakaway layup. I missed everything but the backboard. I hit the backboard, didn't hit the rim, didn't hit the net. There was no place to hide. It was awful. At East Catholic, where I broke my wrist that night, Mark Cherry was given the assignment of guarding Ray Legase, a redheaded left-hander, and Mark was in his pocket all night long. Well, somehow that night, it wasn't our night, I guess, but Ray, when he received the ball at the foul line or beyond, he would take a dribble or two and throw in these line drives off the backboard, and just, it devastated us, and Mark couldn't do anything more as far as guarding a kid. He was literally in his jock, as we would say. Mark's no longer with us, and I hope he's with God watching the ceremony. In a home soccer game against Ellington, I somehow snuck behind the defense. The ball got centered right across the mouth of the goal, and I think had I fallen, I might have deflected it in, but no, I swung with all my might, missed the ball with my foot. No place to hide. No place to hide. At home, in baseball, we were facing Newington High School, and they had this big gorilla of a guy, left-handed pitcher, and being left-handed, I struggled a bit batting left-handed. But I hit 2 screamers, one out and out to first base and one and out to second. I maybe got 2 strides down the line, and I yelled out a curse word each time. The next morning in class, Mr. Oliphant, who was a regular at our home baseball games, took me aside and with a smile suggested that I speak a little more softly when I run the base paths. He was quite a character. And I guess the final thing I want to address is the thing that hurt the most, embarrassed me the most, and actually I learned the most from. I'm pretty sure that I walked around this place like I was some pretty big deal when I was here. I'm sure I strutted around thinking that, you know, here I am. Then report cards came out. And the newspaper, the press, which treated me very, very well, didn't miss that one. And there was no place to hide. I disgraced my family, myself. I let my team down more than words can explain. No injury that I've suffered has hurt any more than that. I'm guilty of making dumb decisions since then, but I truly try to use it as a learning experience. And hopefully my life since that time, besides a few dumb decisions, hopefully it's been okay. So I guess in closing, I'd like to just say that the success of our teams, 61 through 65, and my individual success is a result of an awful lot of hard work, but truly a lot of what this town did for us. This rec department in this town was just incredible and gave us opportunities that are maybe available today, but they have a different taste to them, a different flavor. These people were committed to helping us, and they worked us and molded us as a team. And to all of them, I have to say thank you. Again, I want to thank Scott and the committee for starting this Athletic Hall of Fame. In the years to come, many will be deserving and will be so honored for their efforts of representing this high school as students and as athletes. This will be a lasting tribute to all of us who are selected. Congratulations to my fellow inductees. I thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very, very nicely done. We're going to handle the induction of the next member a little differently because Bill Romanowski could not be here today. I will say a couple of things, and Scotty will jump in and cite a conversation that he had with Bill last night. So we'll let that play out. Bill Romanowski played 4 seasons of football under RHS Hall of Fame coach Tom Dunn, as well as 4 of basketball and 3 of baseball. As a senior football captain, Romanowski was rewarded or awarded with a second-team New Haven Register All-State honor at linebacker and was considered to be one of the finest defensive players in the area. He went on to a 4-year Hall of Fame football career at Boston College, winning the program's Scanlon Trophy for outstanding scholarship, leadership, and athletic ability as a senior. And he went on to a 16-year career in the NFL, which included 5 Super Bowl appearances, 4 Super Bowl victories, 2 selections to the Pro Bowl. In his first Super Bowl, as I remember, he caught the only interception in that game. Despite gaining stardom in the NFL, Romanowski has not forgotten his roots, having made substantial financial contributions to improving our athletic facilities. Mike and Julie, they reside on the West Coast. And now I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who will complete the remarks for Bill's induction.
As Dave had announced, Bill and Julie could not be with us today, but last night, Bill and Julie sent me these remarks, and he asked me to read them. I am honored and thankful to be inducted into the inaugural Rockville High School Athletic Hall of Fame. I would like to thank all the great teammates, coaches, and teachers that pushed me to be the best that I could be. There is one particular coach that stands out to me and truly helped me believe in myself, my abilities, and shared with me that if I was willing to put in hard work and dedication, that the sky is the limit. His name is Coach Tom Dunn. Without his guidance, leadership, and belief in me, there would not have been a college scholarship, an NFL career, or 4 Super Bowl championships. I would like to dedicate this award to him. I have never gotten the opportunity to truly thank him for how much he has impacted my life. I would also like to thank my mom, dad, and siblings that were always there for me. I have always been and will always be proud to call myself a Rockville Ram. Once again, thank you for the honor that you have bestowed upon me today. Bill Romanowski, class of 1984.
Thanks, Scott. Our final inductee is Ralph Schulman, a 1947 graduate of Rockville High School, and he was one of Rockville's most accomplished athletes and well-rounded individuals of the 1940s, playing 4 years of soccer and baseball and 3 of basketball, and serving as a 2-sport captain. Following graduation, the lifelong Vernon Rockville resident played professional baseball in the Boston Braves system, served in the United States Air Force, played baseball at Willimantic State Teachers College, studied voice at the Hart School of Music, graduated from the University of Hartford, and taught for 25 years in the Vernon Public School system. He earned a BS and MS from the University of Hartford and enjoyed a long-time professional career in the Vernon school system teaching English, and as was mentioned before, and serving as the chairman of the Language Arts Department at VCMS. Schumi and his wife, the late, Aida Alvarez, made their home in the Rockville area and had 5 children. Mr. Schumi passed away in 2011 at the age of 81, but today his son Steve Schumi will represent him and accept the award. So congratulations to Ralph and Steve. Come on up and get the award today.
Switch my glasses. Right on. One advantage to living into 85 is that when we honor older people, there's not many left around to attest to their greatness, but I've survived so far. So anyway, Ralph was a year back of me in high school, but we did play on the same teams, and in basketball and soccer. I was never a baseball player, but he was slight in stature, but made up for it with his competitiveness. He took no quarter. You know. He, in baseball, he reminded me of Dustin, for the Red Sox. Pedroia, yes. You know, he's a little guy, but he would hit the hell out of the ball, you know. As Dave mentioned, he did play a year with in the Braves organization down in the Carolinas, and then he came back and went to Willimantic State. He played for Coach Geisler there, and he then spent 25 years as a teacher, educator, at partly at Sykes and then at the Vernon Center Middle School. So we were in the Air Force together, and in the early 50s, our paths crossed again in that Ralph and myself and Al Taylor formed a semi-pro team. It was called the Rockville Moriarties, and we had a good team, and we played many of the better teams in the greater Hartford area. One other thing that I should mention too, that endeared me to Ralph Schulman, and that was that for a period of 4 or 5 years, Ralph raised his 5 children as a single parent, and as a father of 9, I can't imagine what he went through, but you know, he did it, and then Ida came along, and all of his kids are great examples of what he did for them. One other last comment was, well, the kids knew this or not, they probably did, but Ralph loved horse racing. He loved the track. And I hate to tell you the number of times when I would be taking a bus group to Saratoga particularly, or to Rockingham, or to Suffolk Downs, he would call me a couple months ahead of time and say, when are you going? When are you going to Saratoga, or when are you going? You know, but he was a great guy, so it's my pleasure to present for induction into the Rockville High School Hall of Fame, Ralph K. Schulman.
Just like to thank the committee on behalf of my father, who probably wouldn't have had a whole lot to say here. He wasn't much for any type of awards or any pats on the back for himself. Like Bird said, he took good care of me, my sisters, my brother. And I'd like to have everybody stand up, give everybody a standing ovation for each other, and have a happy Father's Day. And we'll be on our way.
We have just a little bit of housekeeping to do. We're almost to the end of our program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, guys. We have a lot of people to thank, and I'm going to run through the list. The contributors who are listed in your induction program, obviously we couldn't have done it without your help. Thank you. Emily's Catering Group of Forestville, Connecticut, for their assistance with our social this afternoon. The Vernon Police Explorers donated a lot of guys to help with indoor and outdoor parking. And Hiram Kadeh for providing piano music during our social hour. The custodial staff here at the high school for their assistance last night and today. And having said that, I have to go back and quote Al McGuire, who was an outstanding basketball commentator a long time ago. And there's people here who will absolutely know this is true, and my wife too. The first people to go to heaven are coaches' wives. Having said that, I want to give a special thanks to Diane Smith and family for all their help putting the induction displays together. And they finished about, what, 12:30 this afternoon, something like that. Anyway, thank you very much. And now, obviously, the first time you do something like this, it takes a lot of hashing and planning and everything else. And like somebody said, this is going on for upwards of 2.5 years. Everything has to come together. And I want to just run through very briefly the members of the committee. Scotty, I just met Scott a couple of months ago, chairman from the Eastern Athletic Department, assistant baseball coach out there. He is on top of all the details. Excellent leader and coordinator, and was part of literally thousands of emails and phone calls and texts. Steve Phelps, RHS athletic director, he gets the credit for the original push to create the Hall of Fame, and I thank you for your administrative support and guidance. And Scotty, I saved Bob because I had a paragraph about Bob Malta. Bob Malta is the gentleman who was taking the pictures. He is affectionately known as Bullet. He did most of the research, he put the program together, created the slide presentation, and did whatever needed to be done. And he conservatively estimates spent about 1 million hours on this project. He probably hasn't slept since Valentine's Day. So whatever it's like. Don't ever tell Bob Malta that something can't be done or that something is too hard, because just consider it done. Give it to Bob. And the same with Kim Marinan, Jim Martello, Bob O'Gara, Steve Krajewski, Dean Cinto. We thank them for their tireless attitude, their undying energy, their exceptional wisdom and good judgments and good decisions. A special thanks to Don Berger for coming up and presenting twice, for your enthusiasm and contributions. Don, thank you. Special thanks to Don, but a very special thanks to Art Wheelock, who knows what his contributions are and who wins the award for the most meetings attended in spirit. I want to extend congratulations to all the inductees. Thanks for everybody for coming this afternoon and for all of your support. That concludes our program. A reminder about committee help. Get in touch with one of us if you want to be on the committee for the next round of inductees. We hope to see everybody for the second induction date to be announced in the near future. Good afternoon. Happy Father's Day. Safely home, everybody. Thank you.